I want you to think back to the last time something lined up so perfectly it almost scared you. Maybe you were thinking of someone and out of nowhere, their name popped up on your phone. Maybe you kept seeing the same number, the same phrase, or the same symbol everywhere, as if the universe had decided to tap you on the shoulder and say, "Hey, pay attention." Those moments of eerie alignment, we call them synchronicities, often feel like external messages dropped into our path, as if some higher power, guardian, or mysterious intelligence is whispering clues about where to go next. But here's the twist that no one tells you. What if those signs aren't coming from outside at all? What if they're coming from you, from a deeper, unfiltered layer of your own consciousness that's always broadcasting, always guiding, always weaving the pieces together long before your rational mind catches up? This is the possibility I want us to explore. Because if synchronicity is actually you, talking to yourself across layers of time, then the game completely changes. You're no longer passively waiting for cosmic breadcrumbs. You're the one scattering them. You're not simply receiving, you're remembering. And doesn't that reframe everything? Suddenly, the universe isn't this separate entity throwing you mysterious signals. Instead, it's more like a mirror, reflecting back your unspoken thoughts, hidden desires, and unclaimed identities. The things that feel like coincidence might actually be a perfect feedback loop between your subconscious and the reality that surrounds you. Of course, this is unsettling, because it means the responsibility is bigger. You can't shrug synchronicity off as random luck or magical interference. You have to consider that it's you, testing yourself, reminding yourself, nudging yourself to notice. And if that's true, then every sign carries a question. Why did I place this here for myself? What part of me needed this reminder? In this journey, I'll take you through why synchronicity happens, how it ties into the observer effect, and the real mechanics behind it. We'll look at the nervous system, identity, and even how parallel timelines might explain why these uncanny alignments show up right when you're on the edge of a shift. By the end, you won't just notice synchronicities. You'll know how to create with them, dance with them, and decode them as messages from your own deeper intelligence. Because the shocking truth is this: synchronicity might not be the universe speaking to you at all, it might be you speaking through reality itself. So let's zoom in on the mechanics, because this isn't just poetic language. It's an actual model of how reality seems to respond to you. Think of your life like a giant mirror. A mirror doesn't invent an image, it reflects what's already there. If you smile, it smiles back instantly. If you frown, the frown stares right back. Reality, at its most fundamental, works in the same way. Quantum physics gives us a clue here. In the famous observer effect, the outcome of an experiment shifts depending on whether or not it's being observed. Reality doesn't lock into place until someone is paying attention. That tells us observation itself carries creative power. It's not passive, it's participatory. And when you add the human element, your emotions, your beliefs, your embodied states, you start to realize the observation isn't just with your eyes. You're broadcasting all the time through your nervous system, your posture, your breath, your frequency of thought. Here's the key. Synchronicities aren't random gifts tossed into the mirror. They're the mirror reflecting your embodied state in a language that catches your attention. The subconscious works in symbols, not spreadsheets. Numbers repeating, songs looping, faces showing up. All of that is symbolic shorthand, a way for your inner world to ripple out into your outer world so you don't miss it. An embodiment is where the signal gets locked in. You can say you want peace, but if your body is tight, your breath shallow, and your nervous system braced for disaster, then what's actually reflected back won't be peace. It'll be chaos, interruptions, signs that match your real state rather than your declared wish. The mirror can't lie. It doesn't show what you demand, it shows what you're being. That's why sometimes, when you shift even slightly inside, when you exhale after holding stress, when you finally accept a truth you've been avoiding, suddenly the world responds. A call comes through, a door opens, a synchronicity clicks into place. It's not magic in the old sense. It's resonance. The mirror rearranging itself to match your new broadcast. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Because we've been trained to interpret these signs as external validation. Like the universe patting us on the back saying, yes, you're on track. But what if the deeper reality is this? Synchronicity is your own consciousness dropping breadcrumbs so that your surface-level mind can catch up to what your deeper self already knows. Which brings me to the big myth we need to break apart. A myth that almost everyone buys into when they first encounter synchronicity. And that myth has been secretly keeping people powerless, waiting instead of creating. And once you see it, you'll never look at signs the same way again. The myth goes like this. Synchronicities are messages from outside of you. That the universe is some mysterious parent figure, sprinkling little signs in your path to reassure you or guide you toward destiny. And while that story feels comforting, it also makes you passive. It trains you to wait for signs instead of realizing you are the one projecting them into the field. Let me show you what I mean with a simple scene. Picture this. You're sitting by your phone, waiting for a text. Maybe it's from someone you've been dating, or maybe it's a reply to an opportunity you've been hoping for. The waiting turns heavy. Your thoughts spiral. What if they forgot? What if they don't care? What if I messed something up? In that state, you pick up the phone and start scrolling, and what do you notice? Suddenly, every song lyric feels like it's aimed at you. Every post seems to echo the same insecurity. The signs appear, but they're not neutral. They're mirrors of your tension. That's the thing. Synchronicity is not proof that someone out there likes you or that the universe is dangling a prize if you behave well enough. It's a reflection of the vibration you're inhabiting. If you're contracted and anxious, the mirror throws you more reasons to feel that way. If you're expanded and grounded, the signs shift too. Songs change, conversations align, people show up in unexpected ways. The field is responding to you, not directing you from above. This busts a huge misconception. You are not a passive recipient of divine telegrams. You are an active sender, and reality is echoing your broadcast in whatever symbolic way gets your attention most quickly. Sometimes that looks like a repeated number. Sometimes it looks like a word popping up in 3 conversations on the same day. Sometimes it looks like bumping into exactly the person you'd been thinking about. But the signal is not foreign. It's familiar. It's you. And when you really let this sink in, something radical happens. Instead of waiting for signs to validate your choices, you begin to notice. The signs already reveal what state you're living in. They're diagnostic tools. They show you what you're actually embodying, whether you've admitted it to yourself or not. So the next time you catch a synchronicity, don't just ask, what does this mean? Ask, what part of me placed this here? What state am I in that this mirror had to reflect back? That shift alone pulls you out of superstition and into real creative power. But if that's true, it raises a bigger question, bigger. If synchronicities are mirrors of your inner state, then why do they so often appear at crucial turning points? Those exact moments where you're on the edge of change. Why do they cluster like fireworks right before a leap? The answer has everything to do with your nervous system and what happens when it finally feels safe enough to let a new timeline lock in. Think of your nervous system as the gatekeeper of your reality. You can repeat affirmations all day, you can visualize the life you want, you can even catch synchronicities flashing like neon signs. But if your body doesn't feel safe, none of it sticks. The mirror will keep showing you turbulence until your inner world relaxes into coherence. Here's why. Your nervous system is the translator between energy and matter. It filters every experience, every thought, every signal before it reaches your conscious awareness. When you're in fight or flight, tense shoulders, shallow breath, scanning for danger, the mirror reflects that state. You'll notice delays, interruptions, strange friction. Synchronicities in this mode often feel unsettling, like warnings. But when you're in regulation, slower breath, softer gaze, grounded awareness, the mirror reflects stability. And suddenly, the synchronicities shift too. They start to feel like encouragement, like puzzle pieces falling into place, like green lights appearing right when you need them. So the real skill is not about forcing signs to appear. It's about teaching your nervous system to rest in coherence long enough for the mirror to adjust. Think of coherence like tuning a radio station. When your heart and breath are aligned, your signal becomes clear, stable, easy to reflect. That's when synchronicity feels like guidance instead of chaos. Let's do a quick practice together, something you can try right now. It takes less than a minute. Close your eyes if you can. Inhale gently through your nose for a slow count of 4. Hold at the top for a count of 2. Exhale through your mouth for a count of 6. As you breathe this way, bring one hand to your chest. Feel the rise and fall. Imagine the breath moving not just into your lungs, but directly into your heart. 3 cycles like this are enough to send a message to your body. We're safe. We can soften. Notice what shifts when you do it. The thoughts slow down, the tension eases, the mirror begins to clear. The nervous system doesn't respond to slogans. It responds to rhythm, to breath, to touch. And once you've anchored yourself here, synchronicities that might have felt chaotic before begin to reveal a different texture. They start clustering in supportive patterns, as if reality is eager to catch the signal you've finally stabilized. But here's the catch. Regulation isn't just about entering a calm state for a moment. It's about moving from temporary states into something deeper. Because the mirror doesn't just respond to moods, it responds to identity. And that shift, from fleeting states to lasting identity, is where synchronicity transforms from random sparks into a steady flame. Here's where most people get stuck. They treat manifestation like chasing states. You meditate, breathe, visualize, maybe even regulate your nervous system for a few minutes. And yes, synchronicities show up. But then life throws stress back at you, the state collapses, and suddenly the mirror looks different again. One day you're in alignment, the next you're back in chaos. It feels like the signs are unreliable, like the universe changes its mind. But the truth is, it's not about states. States are temporary. The real shift happens at the level of identity. Think of it like this. If you borrow confidence for a moment, the mirror reflects confident signals back. But if deep down, you still see yourself as unworthy, the identity eventually overrides the temporary state. The mirror knows who you are, being more than what you are trying. And synchronicities follow identity, not performance. This is why people sometimes say, "I did all the right practices, but nothing lasted." It's because the practices were layered on top of an old self-image. The nervous system relaxed for a moment, but it wasn't given a new home base to stabilize into. The subconscious will always return to its baseline identity, because that's what feels safest, even if that safe identity is painful or limiting. So how do synchronicities help here? They act like flashes from the future self, reflections of the identity you're meant to grow into. When you start embodying even a fragment of that new version of yourself, the mirror flashes with confirmations. You overhear a phrase that matches your private intention. A stranger treats you as if you're already that person. An opportunity arrives that aligns with your hidden dream. These aren't random, they're previews. The deeper you claim the identity, the steadier those previews become until they stop being flashes and start being your everyday life.
And this is why signs often cluster when you're on the verge of change. Because your field is wobbling between 2 identities. The old one pulling you back, the new one flickering into view. The mirror shows both until you decide which identity to stabilize in. So here's the uncomfortable truth. You don't manifest what you want, you manifest what you are. And what you are is shaped not by fleeting moods, but by the identity you anchor into your nervous system as home.
But this takes us to the next layer, the one that makes the whole picture even more fascinating. Because identity doesn't just shape how you feel in the present, it actually selects which timeline you experience. And once you see how timelines connect to synchronicity, the entire phenomenon takes on a whole new dimension. If identity is the foundation, then timelines are the roads that stretch out from it. Every identity carries its own path, its own sequence of events, its own texture of reality. Think of timelines as different stations on a radio dial. Each station is already broadcasting, but the one you hear depends entirely on what you're tuned to. Change the station and the music changes instantly. But here's the part most people miss. You don't change stations by force. You change them by being the person who naturally belongs on that frequency. Synchronicities are how you know you've brushed against another station. They're little signals bleeding through from the timeline you're beginning to access. A phrase, a symbol, a sudden alignment. They act like static that lets you know a different channel is available. And the moment you stabilize into a new identity, the static turns clear. You're locked into that station, and the reality around you reorganizes accordingly. Let me ground this in something practical. Imagine you've been living in scarcity, always bracing for bills, always scanning for what could go wrong. That's an identity. I'm the one who struggles. The mirror reflects it. You see prices rising everywhere. You attract delays in payment. Synchronicities around lack keep surfacing. Then, one day, you begin to embody a new thread. I'm someone who creates stability. You take one small step, maybe setting a boundary, maybe organizing your finances with calm instead of panic. That shift is subtle, but your nervous system feels it. And what happens? Suddenly you notice synchronicities clustering in the opposite direction. A random refund, an unexpected discount, a conversation about opportunities. The mirror is signaling, you've touched a different station. This isn't wishful thinking, it's resonance. Each timeline is coherent with a certain identity, and once you align with the identity, the external field has no choice but to match. That's why chasing money rarely works, but embodying stability draws it in. That's why longing for love keeps you looping, but becoming someone who is open and receptive shifts the channel to where love already exists. And here's the kicker. Multiple versions of you are already alive on these different stations. The synchronicities are not pointing towards something far away. They're echoes from versions of you that already exist, nudging you toward coherence with them. When you catch a sign, it's not the universe dangling a carrot. It's another version of you saying, I'm real, step into me. So the work isn't about forcing reality to change. It's about rehearsing alignment with the identity that belongs on the station you're choosing. And there are concrete ways to do that. Tools that train your body and mind to lock into a new frequency until it feels natural. That's what we'll explore next. A toolkit you can actually use to bridge yourself into the identity your synchronicities are pointing toward. Now let's get practical. If synchronicities are breadcrumbs from your deeper self, the key is to rehearse the identity they point toward until it becomes your new baseline. Think of it like learning a new instrument. At first, the notes are clumsy, but with repetition, your body memorizes the music. Identity works the same way. The more you embody a new version of yourself, the more the mirror stabilizes that reflection. Here are a few tools you can start weaving into your daily life. First, bridge statements. Instead of jumping from I'm broke to I'm wealthy, which your nervous system will reject as unbelievable, use bridges. For example, I'm learning to see stability in my life. Or, I'm beginning to notice moments of support. These bridges feel true enough to bypass resistance, yet they gently lean you toward the new identity. Second, somatic anchors. Words alone don't shift identity. The body has to feel it. Choose a simple physical gesture, placing your hand over your heart, standing tall with your shoulders open, even a subtle smile, and pair it with your bridge statement. Repeat the two together often. Over time, the body associates the posture with the new identity, locking it in more deeply than words could alone. Third, embodiment drills. Spend a few minutes a day acting as if you are already the version of yourself synchronicities are pointing toward. Not pretending, but rehearsing. Walk into a room as if you're the calm, grounded version of you. Speak in a conversation as if you already belong in abundance. Breathe as if safety is your natural state. These micro-rehearsals tell your nervous system, this is who we are now. Fourth, symbolic reflection. This is where synchronicity becomes a training partner. When a sign appears, say, the number sequence you keep noticing, pause and anchor it. Instead of just feeling wonder, ask, which identity is this reflecting back? Which station am I tuning to right now? That question turns synchronicity from a random spark into a compass. If you weave these tools into a mini protocol, it looks like this. Notice the sign. Ask what identity it reflects. Use a bridge statement. Lock it in with a somatic anchor. Rehearse for a few breaths as if you're already that person. 5 steps, a few minutes. But repeated daily, it reshapes the mirror entirely. And here's something I want you to sit with. Have you noticed the moment you stopped gripping, what you wanted finally showed up? Tell me your story in the comments. It might unlock someone else's leap. Because the truth is, these tools aren't about controlling synchronicity. They're about softening enough to let your deeper self speak clearly through the mirror until the new identity feels so natural you stop chasing signs and start living them. But of course, even with these tools, there are traps, subtle ways we sabotage the signal without realizing it. And if we don't name them, they'll keep scrambling the mirror no matter how many practices we try. Even with the best tools, there are 3 traps that almost everyone falls into when working with synchronicity. Each one scrambles the mirror in a different way, and until you see them clearly, you'll keep looping no matter how many practices you try. The first trap is urgency. You feel the pressure of time, the weight of needing results right now. Maybe it's a bill due, Maybe it's a decision you're afraid of making. Maybe it's the hunger for validation from someone else. That urgency tightens your nervous system and narrows your field of vision. Suddenly, every sign feels high stakes. Does this mean yes or no? Should I act or wait? But urgency distorts the mirror. It doesn't let synchronicities unfold naturally. It forces them into a spotlight, stripping them of nuance. The antidote here is spaciousness. Practice expanding your timeline. Breathe into the idea that not everything has to resolve today. The mirror reflects your tempo. Slow down inside, and the signs stop screaming. They start guiding. The second trap is split signals. This happens when part of you says, "I want this," while another part whispers, "I don't feel safe if it arrives." Imagine someone longing for deep love, yet secretly fearing abandonment. Their mirror reflects both. A rush of synchronicities around romance paired with equally strong signs of rejection or confusion. Split signals make synchronicity feel inconsistent, almost like mixed messages from the universe. The solution isn't to force positivity, it's to integrate the parts. Dialogue with the hidden fear, soothe it, reassure it. When your inner signals unify, the mirror finally stops flickering. The third trap is over-control. This one is sneaky. You start treating synchronicity like a puzzle you can decode with perfect precision. If I see 1111, it means I should text them. If I see a blue car, it means yes. That mindset turns fluid symbols into rigid formulas. But synchronicity isn't meant to be micromanaged. The more you grip, the less fluid the mirror can be. Over-control collapses the magic. The remedy here is surrender, not passive waiting, but trust in the dialogue between your deeper self and your outer world. Symbols shift meaning based on your state. Stay curious instead of controlling, and the signs stay alive. These three traps, urgency, split signals, and over-control, are the main culprits behind scrambled synchronicities. And the irony is, the very moment you release them, the mirror clears almost instantly. That's when synchronicities regain their role as organic reflections instead of stress-inducing riddles. So the real question becomes, how do you embody this clarity not just in your meditation cushion, but in the ordinary texture of daily life? Walking down the street, eating a meal, talking to a friend. Because when coherence becomes ordinary, synchronicity stops being rare and starts becoming your normal way of moving through the world. The real power of synchronicity isn't in rare, dramatic moments. It's in the way it starts weaving through the fabric of your everyday life. Because if reality is a mirror, then every ordinary act becomes part of the broadcast. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Take walking, for example. Most of us move fast, hunched, barely breathing. That posture is already a signal. It tells the mirror, I'm rushing, I'm bracing, I'm not safe. And the signs that follow mirror that: closed doors, interruptions, people who bump into you instead of flowing with you. Now shift it. Slow down, lift your chest, feel your feet land fully with each step. That tiny change tells your nervous system, we're here, we belong, we're steady. And watch how the mirror responds. Suddenly, conversations flow easier. You arrive at crosswalks just as the light changes. Small alignments appear as if reality itself adjusted to your new rhythm. Or think about eating. If you inhale your food while scrolling, your body reads stress. The mirror reflects it with signs of more chaos, digestive discomfort, scattered energy, even synchronicities that feel jarring. But if you pause, taste, breathe between bites, your system settles into coherence. The mirror mirrors back with synchronicities that feel supportive. The right words overheard, a calm message received, a sense that time stretched instead of collapsed. Even in conversations, the principle holds. If you're secretly rehearsing what to say while someone else is talking, you're split. And the mirror echoes that split with signs of miscommunication, messages lost, texts delayed, awkward overlaps. But if you regulate, soften your breath, and really listen, coherence builds. And right after those conversations, synchronicities often flood in. The phrase you needed to hear, the confirmation you weren't expecting, the call that arrives at just the right moment. What this means is profound. You don't have to chase synchronicity. You live it. Every ordinary act becomes a tuning fork. The more coherent you are in the small things, the more the mirror can stabilize in the big things. But there's still another layer. Because once synchronicity becomes part of your everyday life, the question is, can this mirror expand? Can it ripple out from daily flow into bigger domains? Your relationships, your health, your creativity, even your sense of purpose? That's where the next leap happens. And it changes not just how you see signs, but how you live your entire life. When synchronicity stops being an occasional spark and starts becoming woven into your daily rhythm, something bigger unfolds. The mirror doesn't just reflect small choices anymore, it starts reshaping entire domains of your life. Relationships, health, creativity, purpose, all of it begins to shift once you're living in coherence instead of chasing signs. Let's start with relationships. Think about how often people approach love from scarcity, scanning for proof they're wanted, obsessing over signs of interest, waiting for texts like lifelines. That's an identity. I'm someone waiting to be chosen. And the mirror reflects it with synchronicities that reinforce longing instead of fulfillment. But when you step into the identity of someone who is already whole, already worthy, the mirror reorganizes. Suddenly, you overhear conversations about love that feel like encouragement. Friends introduce you to people who match your energy. The signs stop whispering wait and start echoing belong. Creativity shifts too. If you see yourself as blocked, the mirror floods you with reasons to stay blocked. Deadlines, distractions, doubts. But when you embody, I'm someone ideas flow through, synchronicities rush in. You overhear the exact word that unlocks a stuck project. You stumble across a resource at the perfect time. You meet a collaborator by chance. The mirror reflects not your frustration, but your flow. And health. This one's fascinating. If your identity is I'm fragile, synchronicities cluster around breakdown, overhearing complaints about illness, bumping into reminders of what could go wrong. But when you shift into I'm resilient, the mirror plays differently. You notice synchronicities pointing you toward supportive foods, restorative practices, conversations about healing. Even your body responds more fluidly because the nervous system now believes a different story. Let me ground this with a scene. Imagine performance anxiety. You're about to step into a job interview. Your old identity whispers, I'm unprepared, I'll mess this up. In that state, the mirror throws you synchronicities that reinforce doubt. Your shirt snags, your bus runs late, your mind blanks on small talk. But if, in that moment, you regulate your breath, anchor into the identity of someone capable, someone who belongs, the mirror shifts. The receptionist greets you warmly. You overhear a phrase in the waiting room that matches your prepared answer. The interview questions align with the stories you rehearsed. What looks like luck is actually coherence, your deeper self arranging symbols to keep you steady. So expansion isn't about chasing grand cosmic signs. It's about letting coherence ripple outward until every domain of your life reflects your chosen identity. And when that happens, synchronicity isn't just guidance, it's architecture. It's how the new version of you builds an entirely new life. But beneath all of this, there's still a deeper truth. Because synchronicity isn't only psychological or practical, it carries a spiritual dimension, a paradox that flips our whole understanding of control and surrender. Up until now, we've looked at synchronicity as a mirror, your subconscious state reflecting through symbols, timelines, and identity. But there's a deeper layer, one that moves beyond psychology into something almost spiritual. Because synchronicity doesn't just reveal who you are, it reveals that you're part of something far larger, an intelligence that includes you, but is not limited to you. Think of it like this. If reality is a mirror, then each reflection isn't only showing you your inner state, it's also showing you the way your inner state plugs into the greater whole. It's as if the mirror isn't flat, but infinite, bending back into itself, connecting every timeline and every possibility in one vast field of coherence. In those moments of synchronicity, you don't just feel guided, you feel woven, part of a pattern you couldn't have scripted on your own. And here's the paradox that makes this so powerful. The more you try to control synchronicity, the less alive it feels. But the moment you surrender, not as resignation, but as trust, the mirror lights up. Suddenly the signs multiply, not because you forced them, but because you relaxed into the larger intelligence that's already carrying you. Surrender doesn't make you weaker. It actually places you in harmony with a field that has a far bigger perspective than your conscious mind ever could. This is why synchronicities so often arrive at thresholds, right when you're about to leap, right when you're doubting, right when your old identity is about to dissolve. They show up not to prove that you're in control, but to remind you that you're not alone. They're your deeper self speaking, yes, but also your deeper self as part of the whole fabric of reality. A conversation between the personal and the infinite. And if you let it, that realization softens everything. You don't have to decode every symbol with perfect accuracy. You don't have to cling to every sign as if missing one means missing your destiny. You simply walk with them, knowing that synchronicity is not fragile, it's abundant. The field keeps reflecting again and again until you're ready to see. So the paradox is this: the less you grip, the more the mirror speaks. The more you trust, the more reality reveals itself as already aligned. Synchronicity is not a rare exception. It's the natural language of a coherent life. And that brings us to the final piece: resolution. How do we tie this all together into one clear image you can carry with you, so the next time synchronicity flashes in your life, you know exactly what's happening? So let's bring it home. We've walked through the mechanics, the myths, the nervous system, the identity, the timelines. We've seen how synchronicities are not random gifts tossed from the sky, but reflections of who you're being, symbols placed in your path by your deeper self. And we've even touched the paradox. The more you grip, the quieter the mirror. The more you trust, the louder it sings. But what do you do with all of this? How do you carry it beyond this conversation and into your real life? I want you to imagine reality as a giant mirror stretching endlessly in every direction. Every step you take, every breath, every micro-choice, it's all reflected back. Not instantly like glass, but symbolically, poetically, in ways that catch your attention just enough to pull you deeper into coherence. When you're anxious, the mirror scatters. When you're grounded, it organizes. When you step into a new identity, the mirror shifts timelines to match. And that means the synchronicities you notice are not random sparks or divine tests. They are you, speaking to yourself through the language of the field. They are breadcrumbs left by versions of you who already exist on other stations of the mirror, calling you forward, saying, "Here this way. This is who we are now." So the next time a synchronicity shows up, whether it's a repeated number, a phrase you overhear 3 times in one day, or an uncanny alignment in your schedule, pause. Instead of asking, "What does this mean?" ask, "What part of me placed this here? Which version of me is speaking through this mirror?" That question flips everything. It turns synchronicity from a superstition into a dialogue. And here's the most beautiful part. Once you live this way, signs stop being rare. They become the natural texture of life. Eating, walking, talking, creating. All of it becomes a dance with the mirror. You stop waiting for proof and start living as proof. You stop chasing timelines and start inhabiting them. You stop looking for messages and realize you are the message. So carry this with you. Synchronicity is not the universe speaking to you. It is you speaking through reality. And when you trust that, when you embody that, when you let the mirror reflect your truest frequency, life doesn't just line up occasionally. It aligns continuously. The shocking truth isn't that synchronicity is rare. The shocking truth is that it's you all along.